Okay, Derbyites, the 2017 Emmy nominations have just been announced. We're still looking through the ballots and finding interesting things to talk about here, but I'm with all the editors, Chris Beecham, Daniel Montgomery, Paul Sheehan, Tom O'Neill. Daniel, you have the list of what shows got the most amount of nominations. So who has bragging rights this year?
This year, it's a little surprising. I know we were all thinking, you know, because of its huge production values, we'd see maybe The Crown as the most nominated program of the year, or Feud, Betty and Joan, or that sort of thing. But there's actually a tie for the most nominations. Saturday Night Live, which has 22, also with 22, and sliding apparently right into all those Game of Thrones categories, I'm guessing, Westworld also has 22. So those were the top nominated shows, and then tied in third place with 18 apiece are Feud, Betty and Joan, and then also Stranger Things got 18 nominations.
Among those Westworld ones is the nomination for the composer, Ramin Djawadi, who got snubbed for Game of Thrones last year. So this is his big comeback for Westworld. What are some things that? Go ahead.
I was just saying, of course, you know, the things we always look for: writing, directing, casting. Those are all for Westworld. So those key categories. You know, it's not necessarily means it's going to win, because you know, several other shows got nominations in those categories too. But it's looking better than it was, or than I thought it would be, for Westworld at this point.
So what's looking worse, Daniel? Who underperformed on the drama side?
One thing that performed, This Is Us did well. It got 11 nominations, and it got some that we weren't necessarily sure about or expecting. Milo Ventimiglia got into drama actor, as well as Sterling K. Brown, Chrissy Metz, Ron Cephas Jones. A bunch of guest actors got in, including Gerald McRaney. But This Is Us, not in writing, not in directing, which no show has won Best Drama Series without a nomination in at least one or both of those categories since The Practice in 1999, I think it was.
But now, last year and this year, we're under a new voting system, both for nominations and for the winners, right? So it's sort of a whole new world. What about over on the comedy side, Daniel? What's really up and what's kind of down?
Well, really up is Veep, and Veep continues to go up. I think this is another new high in terms of nominations. It has 17. It's the most nominated comedy. It has more nominations than it has more nominations than The Crown, you know, including writing, directing, casting. You know, Veep has won casting the last 2 years in a row. Every show that has won casting, drama, comedy, movie, and miniseries over the last 2 years has gone on to win its program award. So that's good news there. Bad news for Blackish. It did gain in nominations this year by exactly one. It's nominated for comedy, actor Anthony Anderson, actress again Tracee Ellis Ross. The only other nomination this year that it added was Wanda Sykes for guest actress. No writing, no directing for Lemons, no casting, nothing below the line. I mean, it's certainly, they did improve, but it's not what they were hoping for.
Wait, I want to go back to the Veep real quick.
No, I just want to jump in for a sec here, Marcus, because I think it's important for people to understand this was the first year that the nominations were chosen in a slightly different way, right, Tom? Maybe you could explain that, because this is what our expectations and what actually transpired are slightly different. But the nominations process was slightly different, wasn't it?
Yes, and I think that was the big challenge for us on the prediction side, is that it's untested. We don't know how this would play out. In the past, as a voter, let's say in the acting branch, you would get 10 check marks to put, and only 10 to give us your list of favorites. But this year they said to the voters, just check off every single thing you think is worthy. So, and then we're going to make the nominations from there. And that's where things got interesting this year. And that is that in the past, these Academy darlings like Peter McNichol, remember? Those two stars, Carrie Preston and Dylan from The Good Wife, now The Good Fight. Some of these are just, is Margot Martindale nominated today?
She's not.
She's not. Well, she's a perfect example. Somebody was an automatic, usually multiple nominee under the old system because she was a favorite. She would be one of the 10 that you would say, oh, great, and check it off. But, and I'm sure they did check her off under the new system, but they checked off everybody else as well. And Paul, right before the nominations came out, you and I were saying, you said, oh, I took Jane Fonda off my list.
Yeah.
For actors, because we thought, well, that she would get in under the new system, but not under the old system. But you lost your nerve, my friend.
I did. I went with Issa Rae, which you had said she would have been under the old, but not the new. And then I think, Chris, one of your favorites is Saturday Night Live. I mean, 3 of the women in that supporting actress, and I guess category. And what has struck me is how you would look down this list and not realize that this is the golden age of television, because so many of these categories have 2 or 3 people from the same show, or there's only 3 or 4 shows, even though there are 7 nominees in some of these acting categories. So it is interesting. I think that we're seeing that check everything offness. Now, Tom, what about though for the winners? Because last year we went to a new system for choosing winners, and we kind of got confounded by some of the choices that they made. So it's now where it's just, you just pick one name. There's no ranking anymore, right?
Right. It used to be you would rank all nominees, and then the contender with the least votes, from the least score would win. Last year, they switched to just an outright choosing a winner process, and it was full of surprises. Suddenly, people won with a plurality of vote instead of a consensus, meaning Tatiana Maslany was able to win for Orphan Black, or a show on BBC America that has sci-fi elements and all these things. She seemed doomed, even though she was a critic's darling and certainly deserved to win. Each year she's been nominated. But on the other hand, we never thought that she really could have come through. But this gives hope to the smaller contenders if they get nominated. But I think it's hurt some of the smaller. Chris, what do you think of the new voting? How did it fare this morning?
Looking down the list, I'm very pleasantly surprised. I was very leery that it might go back in time and pick up a Big Bang Theory or things that aren't as relevant from an award standpoint anymore. What if something like, I mean, this is crazy, but what if something like NCIS in its 200th season suddenly showed up in?
But see, this is where Chris and I'm jumping in here, because Chris and I so disagree on this. The point of awards isn't to recognize the shiny and the new, it's to recognize the best. And so if something's 5 years old or 10 years old, it's still the best. The best movie ever made is Gone with the Wind from 1939. I will have that stand up against anything made in the last 75 years. So I don't agree with you, Chris, that it has to be shiny and new. And I do think that you see that if you start parsing these things, that there's so many people that were denied nominations because of this system of making it so expansive. Anyway, continue. I'm sorry, but I had to jump in on that. That riles me.
Well, we have to disagree on that. But one thing we did notice last year, except in unique situations, and I'm wondering because there's somebody just mentioned, there's so many multiple nominees from the same show in acting across various categories. Last year, other than a situation, let's say like Sterling K. Brown, who was clearly the standout against his other stars. If people were up against each other, like Kit Harington, Peter Dinklage, or the 3 ladies from Game of Thrones, it often went to somebody that was a solo nominee from their show in acting. So, look at limited series actresses. Does that hurt Nicole and Reese? Does that hurt Jessica and Susan? Does a Carrie Coon jump through the middle and win that one?
Right.
Because I don't know that you say one or the other of those that are co-stars. Or does it hurt Kate McKinnon that all of a sudden she didn't have somebody in SNL up against her last year? Now she's got 2 SNL people against her.
Actually, the only woman in that category without a co-star nominated against her is Anna Klumsky, nominated for the 5th year in a row. She's a little overdue, and so maybe she could slide right in there.
Yeah. So anyway, Marcus, I jumped the gun here. I think you wanted to talk about Veep.
Yeah, it's crazy to me. Of their 17 nominations, I think you said, Daniel, they couldn't find room for Peter McNichol. This is the guy who had a nomination last year, and it got
until you took it away.
I think Gold Derby as a whole and Riley Chow helped a little bit. But seeing his name on the ballot, they should have just put him in there, kind of like as a makeup nomination, and they didn't. So shame on you, Emmy voters. 2 of my favorite shows, The Leftovers, 0 nominations.
Oh, no, 1.
Oh,
you got 1.
Yes,
sorry. And The Good Fight, I think one nomination, right, for The Good Fight.
But that's
The
on
Good Fight-
CBS Access. We knew that was
Yeah.
going to happen. I think the big story today is, and I'm happy to say that I was wrong here, is that I didn't think the Emmys were going to be as hip as they are here by picking Stranger Things and what's the other one? And Westworld. I thought I downplayed both in my nominations. I just didn't believe it. I know, just following the conversation in our forums at Gold Derby, they kept saying, no, Stranger Things is going to pull through because we've seen it at the Guilds. Look at the big upset it pulled off at SAG in the ensemble category. It's ripe. It's positioned itself. And then we all got burned at the Oscars when we said, well, that was the logic we used behind La La Land winning, how that was going to win Best Picture because it won all the Guilds. And I just didn't think in the case of the Emmys, coming up to this moment, that the Emmys were going to go for the young hip show like Stranger Things with the kind of supernatural element, and then Westworld with its sci-fi element. I think, and the fact that they did so well, I think that's great.
But
And
isn't it, Tom? Sorry, Daniel. I just want to jump in and say, but I think it's partly because it's gone under the radar, but the TV Academy has really expanded. I mean, it's now up to what, 21,000 voting members, and only a few years ago it was at 14 or 15,000. So I think you're seeing evidence of that diversity, that kind of shifting demographic in the nominations that we might well see at the Oscars, the way they've gone on their expansion drive. But so, sorry, go ahead, Daniel.
Speaking of hip, how about Hulu breaking through for its first nomination, big nominations ever, with The Handmaid's Tale doing well in many categories?
And it overperformed. It has 13 nominations. It got in 2 supporting actresses, Samira Wiley and Ann Dowd. So it's in for writing and directing. That's definitely one to watch. And of course, Elizabeth Moss in for drama actress.
That to me is that category now. I mean, the drama series one. I think This Is Us maybe sort of dropped down a notch, but it seems like it's sort of Handmaid's Tale, The Crown, Stranger Things, Westworld. I mean, those 4 kind of fighting it out. What about Marcus? What about one of you? I thought one of your other favorites is Better Call Saul.
Daniel, how many did Better Call Saul get? It did about the same, right?
Calling up that list now. Better Call Saul is at 9. It's nominated for 9. How many was it in last year?
Including directing. I'm looking now. It got a directing nomination. But no Michael McKean, which is a bummer.
Yeah.
No Ray Seahorn. But it also got writing and directing, which is awesome.
So given that the awards go to just whoever can, 1 vote per member, you get 1 choice. So Chris, what do you think is likeliest to win Best Drama Series out of those nominees?
Drama is a barn burner. You can look at it so many different ways. I think This Is Us, while it did really well, is hurt dramatically by the lack of directing and writing. I think when we have our prediction center go up later today, I'm going Stranger Things. I think that's going to be the winner there. The Crown, to me, while it got into directing, did it get into writing? It vastly underperformed. It should have gotten in Jared Harris, supporting actress. It did not overperform like we saw some shows do. And we all thought it might be the leading nominee overall with numbers because it should have taken a lot of the nominations that it didn't get. So I think it takes a step backwards.
Do you guys know about this new casting rule where whatever show wins Best Casting goes on to win series? We've seen this for a couple years in a row now. So really, for drama casting, these are your 5 nominees: The Crown, Handmaid's Tale, Stranger Things, This Is Us, and Westworld. So one of those 5, statistically speaking, is going to be our winner for drama series.
And sorry, Marcus, I think didn't just yesterday you write about Barb from Stranger Things?
And
just
she
yesterday.
got in. Yeah, can you believe that?
And Winona Ryder, I believe, did not get in, right? Isn't that
right? Millie Bobby did. And David Harbour did.
Yeah. So that's how much and she's in. Barb is in supporting actress.
No, guest
actress.
Guest. Oh, I'm sorry, guest. Okay, because I was thinking, I don't remember really. There were a couple of shots of her in a couple of episodes, but okay, I got mixed up there. But isn't that something? That's how much her character resonated with people. They had to. I'd be curious to look on the ballot. Did the actress submit a character photo or a glamorous headshot? Because You
And
know,
what's
it'd be
interesting about her is, in addition to that, is her name starts with a P, which means she wouldn't have been near the top and she wouldn't have been near the bottom, no matter what order the voters got them in. So they had to find her, and they, that shows that they were looking for her, that they wanted her in there, and voters really were interested in finding Stranger Things on their ballots and voting for it. And that seems like a lot of support.
So we're Chris. So what about you, Marcus and Daniel? What about just drama series? If you had to pick, what would you say?
Well, I've been on This Is Us bandwagon for quite a while, but I cannot reasonably pick it without writing or directing. So, gosh, I don't know. Maybe Stranger Things. Maybe Handmaid's. I'm going to go with Handmaid's Tale for now because it aired way more recently than Stranger Things, which is, way in the past. But then again, that didn't seem to hurt it today, did it, with nominations?
And you wrote about it when they first announced that Stranger Things was going to come back in October, and said, "Oh gosh, why can't you be on in the summer when voting's happening? It's great that you're tying it to Halloween, but you'd do so much better if you were airing in July or August." I'm with you on Handmaid's Tale. Marcus, Daniel, what do you think?
I'm going Stranger Things. Westworld has the most nominations, but I don't know that it has. I mean, a lot of those crafts helped it out a lot, certainly. I'm not sure that it has quite the buzz of Stranger Things. And when you consider that Stranger Things, I mean, Westworld is this lavish kind. It's set in this Wild West and in the future, and has all these production values that would seem more obvious. Stranger Things is a fantasy show, but it's contemporary. So the fact that it got so many nominations, it got into a lot of crafts, it greatly overperformed. I think even though it premiered its first season like an entire year ago at this point, it still has more buzz than most of these other nominees, I think. I think I got to go with Stranger Things for the moment.
And Tom, we were talking the other day, all of us, and you likened Stranger Things to E.T., and then I pointed out, well, E.T. lost at the Oscars to Gandhi, which would be The Crown is this year, this version of Gandhi. Where are you on this today, right now, for drama series? What would you pick?
Yeah, I really don't know. I would have to punt. I'm really thrown by this. I thought This Is Us was guaranteed this race because it has all the tea leaves, but maybe we are on in a new era now where something like Westwood or Stranger Things could win. I don't know. I agree with Chris. I don't think it's The Crown.
Westworld would have been hurt 2 years ago, I think, in a ranking system, because I know people that love it and I know people that hate it. But if it only needs number ones, maybe. I think that hurt Boardwalk Empire back. I compare Boardwalk, not in the way they're done, not in structure, but Boardwalk would just clean up in nominations, but it could never really win drama series. But we have different voting systems from when Boardwalk was on and now. So, Westworld way overperformed. I mean, to get Anthony Hopkins into that really tough drama actor race, for them to notice we figured Evan Rachel Wood and Tandy Newton. I was predicting Jeffrey Wright, but it's a very pleasant surprise because he was sort of the heart of the show.
I took him out. Among the many stupid things I did, who else wants to confess the dumbest move you made right before leaving your predictions for the last time? I took out Genius for Best Limited Series, and I can't remember what I put in. That was stupid. It got in, of course. And then I had, Chris, it's all your fault. I had Samantha Bee Full Frontal, as you know, for a series, and you talked me out of it at lunch yesterday. Marcus, you were my witness.
Whoa.
Oh my gosh, Tom, the other day you were saying she's the new queen. I mean, I think Daniel took your headline. She's the new queen. I know, of the
but Chris was there yesterday while the three of us said, she's not getting it. She's not getting it.
Tom and I compete at the expert level, Chris. Thank you. I'll say the check is in the mail to you. What else did you sabotage him on?
Well, my feeling was, and this hurt me in a category, which I'll mention, but in that variety category, I figured we all knew Colbert was coming in, so that meant somebody was moving out. And then I didn't think under this new system, marking everything, I didn't think Jimmy Fallon is just so liked, I couldn't imagine them knocking him out. And they did. They actually looked at his season and said, no, not this time. So that was quite surprising. The one that messed me up, I thought the same thing about The Americans, I just thought it just finally got in last year for drama series. They're not necessarily watching these things. They're not going to get rid of it this fast. And sure enough, they did. And Margot. But they kept Matthew and Carrie, and it still got into writing. So very odd there.
It goes to what we've said, Tom, repeatedly, that there should, at least at the series level, be 10. There's 10
nominees.
worthy
Yes,
shows. I will say, I want to give a shout out to Gold Derby's collective odds, because a lot of these people, like Matt Walsh on Veep, Evan Rachel Wood for Westworld, lots of them were in the 6th or 7th slot with our odds. You know, they were there. Maybe they were going to get in, maybe not. Really, I think when Chris runs those score reports, I think our collective odds probably will be very impressive. I think we really nailed a lot of stuff, a lot of those hard to call things. What about on the comedy side? Is it so now what you're saying, Daniel, that Veep at 17 nominations, is it just this juggernaut that's going to sail through the Emmys in mid-September?
I'm looking at this list. It's hard to see how anything beats it, because the next most nominated show is Silicon Valley with 10. I don't think that's going to win. Actually, I do think Atlanta, it didn't get a whole massive nominations, and it did miss a couple of important things, like Brian Tyree Henry didn't get in for supporting actor. But it did get in writing. It did twice for writing. It got in for directing. It got in for casting.
Oh, wow.
So under this new system where you just check one, and if it has that passionate following in these key areas, maybe that's, maybe that's enough.
It's the Donald Glover show, because he's got all those nominations you mentioned. Maybe he did cast the show too. But one of the races that I wasn't sure was going to happen, and I'm so delighted, is now the battle for Queen of the Emmys, right? Because Allison Janney bumped herself up to lead for Mom, and she got nominated. She's got 7 for acting. Julia's got 7 for acting. She got a couple more for producing Veep. Clash of the Titans. Tom, who do you think is going to take it?
I think that it's Julia's in a cakewalk again. I think there's just something so compelling and just charming and sexy about you. Feel a personal bond with her. But Allison Janney is not to be denied, boy. She is like the soldier of these awards, and they love her. But I think with just checking one off, I think Julia walks away with it.
Okay, and I gotta go to Chris, because Chris, if you're all about shiny and new, and you don't like seeing things get nominated like the Big Bang and he names all my favorite shows, what do you think about Julia's reign? Do you think she should have done a Candice Bergen and withdrawn?
Oh, you're making me say this on something that people can watch. That's up to an individual person. I wouldn't say that to her or about her. If it had been me, I probably would have. You come off looking great, and
you preserve your streak.
You don't lose. That's right. I don't know who in that category beats her. I don't know that Allison Janney. For Mom, they don't like Mom at all. It never gets anything but Allison Janney. So yeah. I don't know who can beat her. And in the series race, it's just like last year, where Veep not only gets directing and writing, but dominates those categories in terms of nominations. Yep. It's got, what, 3 and 2 again?
And they don't, we rail against, like, for instance, This Is Us submitted 8 episodes for directing. I think that would explain why.
Killed themselves.
Hopefully
people probably, if they put in 1 or 2, they probably had enough votes in directing and writing across a bunch of episodes, but that just, and they just never, some of these producers or showrunners or whoever, they just never learn to back it off.
I think it just might be a factor with some shows to be generous to the ones who submit multiple names. I think if you make a show that has that many episodes and you decide to only submit a couple of people to improve your chance of getting nominations, you might alienate some of your other writers and directors who have been working on your show, and so maybe they're trying to be fair in doing that.
Look at Game of Thrones last year. You can't have a more popular show on television, especially with voters, Emmy voters. And last year they submitted 2 for directing and 1 for writing. Guess how many of those that got nominated? 2 for directing and 1 for writing. So,
But you can't always control that. We have to explain, and that is if you're a member of the Academy, as I am, you get. As a matter of fact, I should have submitted us for nomination in the interactive department. Maybe I'll submit this thing next year for our entry. But you get free entries. Remember, the Emmy is the only show business award that charges money. The Oscars are free, the Golden Globes, the Grammys, the Tonys, but the Oscars have a judging system that is so expensive. All this technology and viewing and et cetera, that they feel justified in charging enormous sums of money for voting. But as a perk of your membership, which is roughly $200, you get to 2 submissions. So in a case of like directors are going to submit themselves. How do you stop?
You know how they control it? No, you know how they control it? I know of showrunners and networks. They tell them, if you submit, here's our strategy, here's our plan. Let's say Game of Thrones. If you want to submit on your own, fine. You won't be directing or writing on our show anymore.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
That's how they do it. SNL on Lorne Michaels, they handpick half or less of their guest hosts every year, and they tell them, don't submit on your own. We've got a strategy. You won't be hosting the show anymore.
So that's what they told Donald Trump last year. Remember, Trump, nobody submitted Donald Trump last year for hosting Saturday Night Live.
So speaking of comedy actors, so where do you guys think that race is right now? I mean, with Donald Glover as sort of the new it boy, you know, could he beat Jeffrey Tambor? I mean, could he end his 2-year streak?
I think Jeffrey Tambor is very hurt because his show was not nominated.
That's right.
Although it did get a casting nomination. Look at the Zach Galifianakis thing. Where did that come from? We know Louis Anderson won last year for Baskets, so don't count out Zach. I would maybe say William H. Macy has a good shot. He won the SAG Award.
Yeah.
That was tough to predict. Anthony Anderson could win, yeah.
But Amanda, one of our contributors, just wrote yesterday, the SAG Award isn't a guarantee winning it an Emmy, you know, and she kind of cataloged just how few of the 20+ SAG winners then went on to win Emmys. Though this is the second time Macy won at SAG, so, and with the new voting system, this could be they certainly love him, and they love his wife. Look at Felicity Huffman. Now talk about another race. Movie mini actress. I mean, that is, you got these
the American Crime didn't get nominated this year. It did get nominated last year, so it has a little bit less awards cachet.
So Tom, come on, I'm going to make you pick. Who are you picking? Movie mini actress? Is it Jessica Lange, Susan Sarandon, Nicole Kidman, Reese Witherspoon, your favorite Carrie Coon, Felicity Huffman?
I think it's Jessica Lange all over the place. I think that when you're a famous person portraying a famous person, especially somebody so iconic of what she did with Feud. But look, Big Little Lies has overperformed everywhere you go. And whenever you ask people in this town what they love, that Big Little Lies is just beloved. And Nicole Kidman, even though it's not a transformative performance, it's a very emotive one. And she could win here, but I'm not sure I have the guts to bet against Jessica Lange
and Chris. When you spoke to Jessica Lange, and she spoke so eloquently, not only because she's also a producer of this, about the acting, but she talked about the craft. She talked about the attention to detail, and I was so delighted to see Ryan Murphy being nominated for directing the Oscar episode, for writing that Oscar episode. I mean, the dedication to that, to the money they spent to reproduce the 1963 Oscars. Tom, you were there then in 1963. What were
you bet? But you know, we were there, Chris Marcus and I, on set with Ryan Murphy for the shooting of the very final scene between the two divas. That was a blast. And Ryan was telling us, and we, by the way, then we toured all the various sets, right? So when we got to the areas of like the restaurants, was that Ciro's or whatever, these famous Hollywood haunts, they pointed out that the salt and pepper shakers on the table were exact. That at the Oscar reenactment, that night when Joan Crawford accepts Anne Bancroft's Oscar while we watch Bette Davis lose, that iconic thing, they got the research of that down to the nail polish that Joan Crawford wore that night. Jessica Lange was wearing it. That's how detailed they were. Amazing.
How thrilling, by the way, that Jackie Hoffman got in. I said weeks ago, I put her in because everybody, a lot of the industry watched Feud, and every scene she's in, she's with Jessica Lange. So I just thought that's going to really play well with a voter. So I'm thrilled that she got in this morning.
Notice who's missing from the actress category. No Oprah. Every time we pick Oprah for some kind of an acting award, whether it's this or The Butler, she does not get in. What's wrong with us? Why do we keep picking her?
I picked her over. You were asking about things you're embarrassed about, Tom. So I took out Felicity Huffman, who they love. They loved for Desperate Housewives, and they nominate all the time. And I put Oprah in because I just thought, it was a transformative role, and it was actually a very. It's a shame because if it wasn't Oprah, I think she would have gotten more credit for the performance in that film, which is a lovely film.
But her movie got nominated, and so did your buddy's movie, Dolly Parton, Chris.
That's right, Chris.
We've already been emailing today. They are over the moon, and they thank us partially for that because we did interviews with Sam, who you just mentioned, and Olivia, who plays young Dolly, and Dolly came to the office and did an interview. So they hustled this year. I mean, they really wanted that nomination. Well,
this is where anyone watching this that's a nominee needs to contact chris.beecham@goldderby.com and arrange an interview if they haven't done one yet, because this is the golden ticket to an Emmy is a webcam with Gold Derby.
And in this case, we have to say that.
Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But Chris, let me finish this up. In the case of Dolly and the interview, it was so cool because Chris did it solo. He had the whole video studio there. The whole company, Penske Media Corporation was like, Dolly Parton's in the house. Oh my God. Everyone's storming, hanging out outside this room. And Chris is in there with Dolly and the camera. And people were hovering outside. Do you think she wants water? Should we knock on the door? And finally when the doors open and Chris emerges with Dolly, it was like they just had been best friends forever. It was really a great moment.
Because you know why, Tom? Because Chris did his research and talks to her about the awards that mean the most to her, like the Kennedy Center Honors and the Songwriting Hall of Fame, because she thinks of herself as a songwriter first. And she appreciates that. People appreciate that we're not fawning and asking them, who are you wearing? Or do you feel blessed that you got this role? We're asking insightful questions and understand their history. And certainly we think we know how the Emmys work, but I think that really the people that know are the people that are going to start predicting in a few short hours and right up until the awards are handed out in mid-September. Because really, we don't know collectively what's going to happen this year. I think it is kind of all over the place.
Another one you mentioned, Tom, in passing, but I want to also congratulate and say how happy I am for Nat Geo for getting so many nominations for Genius. Now Nat Geo is on the map. And Genius was another one that came to us early on and did a ton of interviews. Everybody from Ron Howard to Jeffrey Rush to, all sorts of people that were involved in that, and behind the scenes people that got nominated today. So I'm thrilled when I see a Nat Geo breakthrough like this or a Hulu breakthrough like this today.
Right. And in both of those cases, Chris, let's you and I talk about this because it's a side of Gold Derby that people don't know. In the case of Nat Geo, the network presidents came to me. We had breakfast. They said, what do we do? We're not playing this Emmy game right. It's not working out. And I gave them the best advice that I could on what consultants they should hire and how they should proceed. And they interviewed a lot of the consultants. They followed up in a very respectful, intelligent way with a smart battle plan, the investment capital they need to play this game, and an action plan that delivered. Hulu did the same thing. In each of these cases, as Amazon emerged, as Netflix emerged, specifically Amazon and Hulu are the two that came to us, specifically me and Chris, and just go, what do? We need to break into this game. And they listened. They got the best professional help. Yeah, they spent a fortune. I think Amazon and Netflix have spent somewhere near $3 million each so far this year, maybe more. But boy, oh boy, look at how it paid off for Hulu. This morning, the first thing I saw when those nominations came out, and I looked, did Handmaid's Tale get into drama series? Because I was going to take it out last night and put Stranger Things in or something. I kept going, what do I, when I was rearranging my predictions at the last minute, of course, I would have ended up with the same score. But it got in, and that's huge. This is a drama series nomination for Hulu. Wow, well done.
And Elizabeth Moss really could win that race. I think it's her and Claire Foy, and Claire's more understated. So Elizabeth's also got a huge IOU from the Mad Men days and Top of the Lake. So that may be I don't know that they're going to win drama series, although they could. but I think they're going to win Elizabeth Moss.
I think so too, especially because The Crown underperformed a little bit and underperformed in acting categories, which goes to the acting branches is going to decide this. And Handmaid's Tale overperformed in acting categories. So those facts are definitely, I'm definitely going to start predicting Elizabeth Moss once that prediction center is open.
And all 4 drama winners in the main acting categories are not going to be at the main ceremony. Ben Mendelsohn's sort of an asterisk because he's now in guest category, but the 2 leads, the 2 supportings will be different this year than they were last year.
And Chris likes new, so we've got guaranteed new. So, okay. Well, I think that's a great.
Final thought: is there anything really terrible on the list that you just go, "Oh, this doesn't belong," or "What is this doing here?" Is there anything, if you want to get a personal dig in and go, "Boo," what's your big?
My own personal dig is: you're the Television Academy. Can you not put a live video on your homepage?
Wow.
We couldn't watch the nominations announcement live. It maybe had a cap on there, and we were later than I don't know. I mean, I had the thing open for half an hour before, so that's.
I think it might have
honestly ridiculous because you run tests and you know if it's going to work or not.
I think it might have been a platform thing because I couldn't get it to work in Chrome. I couldn't get it to work in Firefox. And then I was like, okay, let me check, see if I can do it on my phone. And for some reason, I opened it on my phone and Facebook Live on there was it.
But how many categories did you miss before you had to do that?
I don't know how many they did before. I probably half of what they did because it was a fairly short announcement.
The TV Academy screws this up, everything on the nomination morning. You have to hire Sherlock Holmes and a pack of bloodhounds and 4 other spies to find the information at Emmys.com or Emmys.tv when the nominations come out. You have to somehow find a section of the website called downloads to find the nominations. And they're just terrible in terms of helping us to absorb all this information. And this is my personal bitch. And the way the nominations are organized or disorganized alphabetically so that what is it, multi-camera film editing or something, or TV editing is the number 1 thing on the list of nominees. They've got to get their act together.
I'll throw a dig
I'm
at
just gonna
the voters. There's no Bates Motel, like no Vera Farmiga, no Freddie Highmore. This is one of the best, shows ever, and it got snubbed.
And I'll say the same for Doctor Who. It was eligible, and they didn't. Huge, just so well crafted to get no nominations at all. That's.
Yeah.
What about you, Daniel?
Far more good than bad today, though. I could nitpick a few things here and there, but I'm really thrilled.
Yeah. Okay. Well, let's make that the last word, and Chris has to go and set up the prediction center so I can be wrong about all the winners, like I was about the nominees.
And run the score report so we can find out who won this.
Watch for all of that today. It'll all be up soon.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.